Welcome back to Tiny Little Victories, the podcast that talks to humans who are changing the world. Now, nobody is changing the world as aggressively and positively as our next guest, Julia Bialetska, who is the CEO and co-founder of S.Lab from Ukraine. Yeah, we're going to talk about this a little bit because this woman is quite formidable. She has founded a company in 2021 and it takes agricultural waste and turns it into green packaging, fully green packaging. No fillers, no binders. And guess what makes the connections between the waste? Mycelium, which she actually uses to break down this waste and reform packaging. And that is incredible. She started the company in 2021. And then in February, the war broke out in Ukraine. And so she had investors. She had a factory that was going to make an industrial scale production facility. And she and her husband had to pivot fast. So we're going to talk a little bit about her pivots and where she is now, the country that was so supportive of her Ukrainian startup is Spain. But before we go any further in this very fascinating story, I want to talk about waste. Yeah, I'm going to talk about waste. Pretty dramatic music there, isn't it? Because it is dramatic. Now, how many of you buy products from Amazon or shampoo or the grocery store? Hello, everybody. And so this is why I want to tell you that packaging, your stupid iPhone, your silly little Android, your earbuds, cables, this list could go on and on and on because literally everything is packaged. 40% of plastic waste comes from packaging materials. Yeah, 40%. And I'm going to run down some details on who's making the most waste. Of course, it's going to be the United States because we're just like waste producers, Europe, and then China. 37% of total plastic waste comes from the US. In Europe, it's 38% of the total plastic waste. And in China, packaging accounts for 45% of the total plastic waste. Now, I don't want to go down a little trail here around politics because we got enough of that today. But that is a ton of plastic waste. And you know what? We buy a lot of stuff from China. So not only do we make our own waste, but then we buy a ton of stuff from China, which actually makes more waste. And the worst thing about this plastic packaging and all this stuff ends up in a landfill as unregulated waste because we don't have policies in place to break that down or recycle it. How about that? Single-use packaging is designed for one use and then discarded. Think of your stupid HP printer cartridge and that little container it comes in, and then the plastic wrapper that comes around that. Waste, not recycled. Food and packaging. Oh my God, food and packaging materials. Can we talk about that? Your oat milk has a cardboard container, yay. And then inside of it is a little ring you have to pull out. Another little tiny piece of plastic waste. Solid waste. Around 942 million kilograms of plastic packaging are produced by e-commerce activities worldwide. Is this exhausting? It feels bad, doesn't it? But only a very small percent are recycled. And here's the worst thing for me, should be for you, because you know how I feel about food and agriculture, is that plastic waste pollutes the environment, harms wildlife and ecosystems. There's no way around it, guys. We have got to change how we are packaging things. It has got to be fully compostable and it has to be biodegradable. And when it does go in the ground, it has to be completely non-toxic. I don't know why it's not a no-brainer. It upsets me greatly because hemp is one of those products that is so strong, even when it's recycled back in the ground. It actually gives nourishment back to the soil. It is a product that's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. And before even 1960, it wasn't even considered illegal until governments got a hold of it and decided that it was bad. And in Texas, the state I live, sadly, because we're so backwards in politics, they've actually now got a bill to ban hemp, to prevent all this THC from getting out to the market. But yet hemp is such a powerful crop. It does so many things. Ropes are made from this. BMW has a car with inside panels made from hemp. It's stronger than plastic. It's better for the environment. I don't know why we're not doing this. But our guest today from S.Lab actually uses hemp, agricultural waste, linen scraps, anything produced in agricultural, and binds it with mycelium to create this biodegradable to packaging. 100% fully green biodegradable to packaging. Isn't that amazing? I think it's amazing. So get ready to listen to Julia Bialetska, the CEO and co-founder of S.Lab, now based in Spain. Oh my God, I am so happy to have with us on the show today, Julia Bialetska. Hello, Julia.
Hi, Jennifer. Happy to be here and finally see you in person.
I know, you too. Yeah, just for everybody out there, Julia and I met on email back in, December, because her company that I talked about in the beginning of the show is doing some very amazing things with recycling, with sustainable materials. Anyway, she was going to CES and we were going to meet, but I wasn't going to CES. So we had a whole conversation to create a story, to run around the show, to meet with people that, you needed to meet with. And then I just wouldn't show up. I thought it was a pretty clever ruse, don't you think?
Yeah.
I hope those guys aren't listening.
Well, probably they will not know that's about them, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, they will not know. But yeah, so I'm so glad to see you because I have been wanting to talk to you for a while. And for another big reason is because you're from Ukraine. And I think one of the things I learned about you was when I read about the startup that you had started is that you had started S.Lab in Ukraine and then the war broke out. By the way, I want sound effects with that. Boo. And here you had to move to Spain. So talk to me a little bit about the movement of the company and sort of how you felt about that. Like, was that hard?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking how I felt because definitely it's all very emotional. And I would start by saying that we were ending 2021 on a very high note. We were expecting to skyrocket next year with our startup, S.Lab, because we were about to receive the first investment. We spoke with the biggest logistics company in Ukraine that were super interested in our solution. We spoke with a big beauty company, and we were really expecting to skyrocket in the 2022.
Yeah.
There were some rockets, but not the one that we expected.
Not the wrong kind of rockets, right?
Right. Yeah.
I love that sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, that's all what we have left, kind of, to kind of laugh at that. But yeah, so I was one of those people who never expected that this would happen. And my level of kind of assurance that this will never happen was that on February 22nd, I was driving around Kyiv region to find a land where we will build our next factory for the production of our packaging. So I was so optimistic and so sure that, I was even driving around and calling people, will you sell me this land? And really looking for a space. Yeah.
But at that time, you obviously weren't, that nobody was really thinking about the war. And so you're out driving around in your mind. You were just focused on these milestones, right? Because you had the transportation company, you had the investor. Did you think when you were out there driving around looking for land that you would be leaving your homeland, your country? How quickly was that move from you driving around to we have to move to Spain?
So, it was February 22nd when I was driving around. And February 24th, when everything started, I woke up as many Ukrainians from the sounds of the explosions. And actually, it was funny. I heard those explosions and my husband immediately jumped from the bed and was trying to see in the window what's happening. And I told him, don't worry, this is probably some car there, probably it's just a sound from, and I could not believe that. Yeah, crazy optimistic.
I love that about you. Because you can't believe it. The fact that it was, I couldn't believe it. And I'm not even there. So I can't even begin to imagine the fear and the sadness and the things that went on. But in a way, your fortitude and it's just a car in the background. Because why would you expect that in Ukraine? I visited the Ukraine many times.
Wow.
And, Kyiv, and it's such a beautiful city, and I learned so much about food. And that's, I think, I know I'm detached because I'm so far away, but like I remember walking around there. I remember the smells. I remember the people. I remember the crazy car driving, just for the record. Getting into the airport and being stressed about like, do you have to get a visa? Can I pay to get ahead of that line? And though I have a friend, she's a Dutch friend. It was when I was living in Europe, and she and I met on the plane, and we're still friends to this day from our Kyiv experiences of sitting next to each other, going through customs, trying to get a taxi into the city, and then just being with all the amazing people and the camaraderie and just the kindness, basically. That's what I remember.
100%. It's a beautiful, peaceful country.
It is. I want to talk about that later. But I want to ask you, you mentioned that you jumped up out of bed and you thought it was a backfire. And at what point did the realization come to you that it was not a car backfiring?
So I just thought, well, I will check the news just in case. And I checked the news. My husband was at the bathroom at that moment. I'm just start shouting, "It started." So basically, it was just 2 words that I said. Then my husband said, "We have only 15 minutes. So basically, pack whatever is available to you." Because, I was not expecting anything, but we already had a backpack with a document that was there. And my husband was ready for that. He had an extra petrol just in case. He had some survival things in the car. So he had...
Very prepared, your husband.
He was prepared for that. He said, I hope doesn't happen, but he was ready. He had a road, how to escape. And he said, well, I'll give you 15 minutes. You can take whatever valuable things you want to take. And I took my Dyson and some...
Yes, you took your Dyson. I would take my Dyson too. To be honest, that is that is an expensive, powerful machine.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to ask you, what things did you grab? I'm curious.
Now it's so funny and silly, but I took my Dyson. I think the jewelry was already packed into that backpack. Documents were there. We didn't have really any cash. No one is storing any cash at this time. So I just took those things, and I have 2 kids, 2 daughters.
You took those? Yes.
I took them, of course. Yes. I took just some books for them. That's all. And I took really limited amount of things. But the funny thing that I took my shampoos, because I thought those shampoos are so expensive. I will take them. My hair care, I will take them with me. No matter in what condition I will leave, but I will take my shampoo.
My hair is going to look really good. You know what? It's always interesting because I have always asked people, what would you take if you had to leave your home immediately? What would you pack? And everyone kind of looks at me like, what? But it's a real thing. Your daughters, obviously, some books for them. That's smart. And obviously took your computer. But what point did you pivot back to the company? Or was it forget the company at this point and you're just driving to Spain? Were you always going to Spain?
No, it was a random choice. So by coincidence, my parents had an apartment in Italy that they just bought maybe a few weeks before the war started, maybe also in some type of anticipation.
So smart.
So our plan was just to drive to that apartment, to be in a safe space, and then decide what we do next, what we do with our lives. And at the same time, we were part of the acceleration program that was about to start in Copenhagen. I think it was starting in March. So basically, we stick to that plan that I go to Copenhagen to go through the acceleration program. We get the investments together with the acceleration program, and we see how we can rebuild the company or restart it. So obviously, we had to restart it. So first we thought maybe let's do this in Denmark, maybe let's do it somewhere else in Europe. So what we ended up doing is we made a spreadsheet with all the countries in the European Union.
Oh my God, you guys are so meticulous. I love this.
And then the factors that were important for us were to restart the company. The closeness of the raw material was important. The salaries, that type of things. So we put those things into this spreadsheet and just we're ticking some boxes in different countries. And of course, kind of Spain was...
No VAT, it's much less expensive to live there. And the raw materials.
Yeah, exactly. And it is sunny. The weather is great. At the same time, the level of education is high. So you can find the talents here. But at the same time, unemployment level is also quite high. So this means that you actually can have access to those talents. So like all of those factors came together.
Ah, okay. Smart.
Yeah. And that's how we kind of, well, a bit randomly, as I say, that we never thought of ending up in Spain. It was not our dream or plan or anything. But based on those factors, it was the best choice. So at that time, so that's what we ended up doing, just going to Spain. And then every country has this program for Ukrainians. We applied for the documents. In terms of our personal documents, it was super easy. I think we got all the documents, all the permissions to live in Spain, maybe like in a day, even less.
Wow.
So it was super fast. Yeah, in that sense.
But you mentioned that in the interview that we did, that you said Spain was so supportive. I mean, when you decide to go there as a company, but also supportive of you as being a Ukrainian coming and leaving the country. That's really amazing because those kinds of things don't make the news cycle about how fast it is and how important it is for a family and anyone really to feel safe and to be welcomed in the European Union that way.
Yeah. And have the paperwork done. That's a lot.
Yeah. In a day. Like that's really unheard of. When you finally got to Spain, you had some founders with you. You had other people that you worked with, and they, of course, ended up in Spain with you. Okay. Just for everybody out there, had a company, 2021, set to take off. The war comes. Not even a legitimate war. I'm just editorializing. You move, you go to Italy, you get your ground, you go to Spain, and then you start again pretty immediately from what we've said before. How fast was that process? Because your company's very physical.
Yeah, definitely.
And can we just talk for a minute about your smart choice of Sunny and these raw materials? Because I don't think S.Lab would work if you didn't have access to these raw materials. Let's talk a little bit about those raw materials and why they were so important to building S.Lab and how successful you've been already with the company.
So we rented an apartment in Spain and we started to go back to producing some of the packaging materials in this apartment for a few months as we were waiting for the production facility to be ready for us. So what happened with us is that I always say that there is a power of network everywhere. And like we use mycelium, that is a network of mushroom roots, and we use its power to bind plant waste to create packaging. And the same way, I think network has been so powerful for us. So in our network, there was a person from Spain who was also rooting for Ukraine and like really trying to help Ukrainian startups.
Yeah.
And then he lobbied an opportunity or created an opportunity for Ukrainian startups to participate in the startup show in Spain, like for free, everything covered. And of course, it was then up to us. We were part of this like Ukrainian delegation. And then it was up to us to actually use this opportunity and to get acquainted with the Spanish network and like stakeholders and people there. So we got acquainted with the local government. And we said that, well, we are here in Malaga and we would like to get your help. And they said, so, well, what do you need? And I say, like, we need the actual production facility, the space where we can produce our material, like reestablish our manufacturing processes and actually produce it. And they said, well, we have some options for you.
Unbelievable.
Yes, that's what I meant when I said Spain was so welcoming, because like we said that we have this need and then they responded back to that need.
I mean, that's also pretty fast. That was in 2022 then. Yeah. So, okay, just for everybody out there, let's talk a little bit about, even though I talked about S.Lab in the beginning, but let's talk a little bit about the intensity of what you've created because it's very physical, your company, right? And I think, a lot of people think tech startups are very much like in the air, push a button, it's AI. But talk a little bit about how you got to the idea of S.Lab. And I love mycelium. Like I am all about a story about mycelium. It's like the magic binder for everything.
Exactly.
So talk to us a little bit about how you got to S.Lab and the process for creating the products that you create.
Probably media is already full of this story about us going to Bali, but that's what led to, I think, what we are doing at the moment. So we are actually two co-founders, my husband and I. And I have a master's degree in biotechnology, but I never worked in my life as a biologist, like a single day, not a single day before this startup.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's also an interesting story. I was so discouraged by the situation of the science in Ukraine when I was a student. It was like 15 years ago. And the things that I saw there, I thought, well, this is not enough for my ambition. I mean, I know it was probably too childish of me at that time to like, well, if there is no opportunities, if there are no modern cool machines that I could use to do my research, I should not be even in this field at all.
You know what? I don't think a man would ever think that. I don't think that that is too childish of you at all. I think that is ambitious and forward thinking of you. And no, we should never think that way. Because if we don't have scientists like you thinking this is not good enough for my ambition, which will change the world, then we're going to be really screwed, Julia, if we don't have thinkers like you.
I agree. I wanted to grow organs. I wanted to grow tissues. And
really?
When I saw what is done, like what scientists are spending their time on at those research institutes, I thought, well, it's not for me. So what I ended up doing, I was a product manager in the software industry. And I guess it's just it's not even skills. I think it's something I was born with, leadership, management approach, entrepreneurial kind of mindset that just showed up there. And I was working in the software industry, and I got a pretty good career, I would say. And at one point I also thought, well, this is not good enough for me, and I don't have balance between family and my career. And we went to travel to Asia and to work remotely and to work at the same time, this digital nomad lifestyle that everyone dreams of. Yeah, and so I decided, well, I will make this dream come true. And we moved to Asia. We were traveling through Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and then ended up in Bali in Indonesia, in this beautiful paradise island. And we were doing surfing there. So, of course, going to the ocean, spending the time there.
You're connected with nature. You're talking about everything that connects you back to the environment and to the earth. I see where this is going. Yeah.
Exactly. During one of those surfing sessions, instead of this beautiful nature, I saw huge piles of plastic, and it was devastating. It was such a picture, and I was just thinking about that all the time.
It's garbage.
Yeah, anyone who saw that would remember that for their whole life.
Yeah, that tropical paradise, and then just waste on the beach and garbage and plastic. Yeah, it's a crime, really.
Exactly. So I was devastated on one hand, but on the other hand, my approach was, let's see if there is anything we can do differently or anything we can change. I don't like to be, to be dwelling on the injustice in the world or the issues. I like to be the change that I want to see in the world. And this was my kind of call to try be a change of those materials and see what could be done differently.
It's really like your tiny little victory in a way, because I think it's so interesting how when you open yourself up to the world, you're trained as a scientist, as a biologist, but you knew something wasn't right. And going out into the world gives you those experiences. And then just something smacks you in the face, right? This smacked you in the face in a way. And then your wheels start to turn. You begin to think, and I love that you said, don't want to dwell on the injustices. I want to make the change. And that was that aha moment then for you on that beach in Bali. How did you take that moment back? Were you immediately forget surfing, I've got to make a business plan? Where was your path there?
Yeah, it was one thing after another thing. So we just focused on looking into getting back to the research, I would say, in terms of science. So what is science behind creating new materials? Then we were looking into the market. What are the solutions that already exist on the market and why we do not use them? What is the problem with them? So it was my main opening.
Yes,
I'm sure that humanity is happy to use something different than the plastics, but basically there is now no options, or I needed to know what is the problem with the alternatives. Well, on one hand, we discovered that you need two components to create a new material. One that provides structure or matrix to the material, and the other one that is gluing or binding it all together.
Okay.
So as the matrix, we decided to use hemp. It's a very strong plant. And it's a very traditional Ukrainian plant, by the way.
Really?
Our national clothes is made out of hemp fabrics. And so many things are made out of hemp, but we don't know about that.
Oh, so many things are made out of hemp. Yeah, we did a podcast a while ago with Pankaj Srivastava, who is all about the hemp. But actually, that crop is so old. It makes such strong products, biodegradable products, a byproduct that actually nourishes the soil. It doesn't deplete And actually, Henry Ford made an entire car out of hemp in 1914 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello. And here we are 100 years later, and we still can't get the party going on hemp. It's kind of strange, don't you think? You're getting the party going.
Yeah, there were some restrictions in 1960s regarding the hemp, and the cotton started to be...
Until somebody said it's a bad drug and bye.
Exactly. It's all the regulations. But actually about the car, so BMW has the interior made out of hemp.
Oh, yes, they did their panels in hemp.
Yeah,
yes, exactly. So cool. Okay, so you got to hemp, and Ukraine has this great hemp supply.
Yeah, exactly. So we went to the Association of the Hemp Cultures in Ukraine. We told them, well, we have this great idea to make a new material. And they were such fans of this idea, and like that they gave just us like a chunk of hemp for us for the test. So just they gave this like amount of the material for us to make some experiments.
That's great.
Yeah, and like I think that's what was actually what we experienced throughout our whole path. There were so many people who supported us, and like were such a big fans of what we do that they were willing to contribute. So this was their contribution. And we started to glue this hemp with the glues that we couldn't find on the market. So we were literally doing this in our own kitchen as an experiment. We were still having our full-time jobs.
Yeah, wild experimenters.
Right.
Yeah.
And then at the nighttime, we, pull up the hemp.
That is the true example of an entrepreneur, right? Like literally have this job. You're in your kitchen at night, like putting together this matrix.
Yeah. But when we were gluing this with the glue that we could find on the market, we quickly realized that we are still following the synthetic process. So if we throw this hemp with synthetic glue back to the soil or back to the nature, it will not biodegrade.
Yeah.
It will not go back to what we want. And like our idea was to make it fully biodegradable and that it could be returned back to the nature in its divine kind of complexity.
Yeah.
So we had to find something different as a glue or as a binder. And that's when we found out about mycelium. So of course, as a biologist, I knew what mycelium is and like what it does and what is the purpose of it in the mushroom world. But I never thought of trying to mix it with something and then get this gluing kind of properties out of it. So again, we went to the Scientific Institute of Botanical Institute.
I love the way you guys do things. You guys deduce something, let's go here. And then you go back out to the institute or the association. It's a really good process.
To get some foundation from them, So then again, we explained, so here's our idea. Probably we would like to take mycelium and mix it with hemp, and maybe we will get something at the end. And scientists actually knew about this binding properties of mycelium, but it also never occurred to them to, try to make something industrial or a new product or something like that.
And then, of course, they didn't think about it because no one has done it, maybe, and that maybe people aren't trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve, which is making this fully biodegradable, compostable packaging for all these gazillions of consumer products that are out there. Your iPhone case when you buy a new iPhone, okay, or an Android, your fancy shampoo comes in a container, wine containers, or that protect anything that's packaging, right? Why is nobody really trying to solve that problem? Because as a consumer, I stopped buying a product that I loved from Italy, actually, because she uses styrofoam peanuts in her packaging. Yeah. And I said, I will fund your business if you switch to biodegradable cornstarch peanuts. She's like, oh, they're so expensive. I'm like, yes, but they're better. They press olive oil, and I love their olive oil and balsamics, but I stopped using them. God, I hope she's not listening. Because I don't want to throw a box of styrofoam peanuts in my recycle bin.
Yeah, because then you need to take care. And you need to take care of how to recycle that, where to put it. And it stays for 500 years.
Yes, and nobody's taking those peanuts. They end up blown out of your garbage can. And I just feel like, Julia, that it should be a crime to even produce a product like that. Do you find that once you were able to figure out the binding with the agricultural waste, I'm skipping ahead, I know, but did you find that when you went back to companies, they were like, yeah, we want to buy this? Or people were like, you're going to have to prove it to me?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was different reaction. So basically what was clear, that everyone also wants to solve the problem of the packaging. Everyone realizes that, because we started 2021 when everyone saw the amount of the packaging used after COVID times. So it was perfect timing.
Yes, that's such a good point.
Yeah. So there is no doubt that we have to solve this problem, that the new materials have to be introduced, that we need to look differently into the packaging, and maybe even even use the same materials, but less of those packaging materials. So everyone was trying to see how we can actually decrease this amount of the harmful materials that we are using, because they all end up in the landfills or in the soil or in the ocean. So clearly everyone said, yes, we want to solve this problem. And when we were going to big companies, they said, yes, we want to solve the problem. Yes, we do have sustainability policies in place. And yes, your solution probably has the same properties as polystyrene, but what about the price? And it's the question that I hear every time.
Oh, it all comes back to money. It all comes back to money. Yeah, we have sustainability principles. I'm sorry, big companies. That's just bullshit. And then, but how much is it's going to cost.
Yeah.
It's going to cost to fix something.
Yeah, but of course, on one hand, we do try to make it not much more expensive than the alternatives to kind of don't have this barrier. And with the technology that we are developing, we are able to scale and produce on a bigger scale. So it makes it cheaper for us to produce and then cheaper to sell and so on. But overall, if it's the only question that the company has, we choose not to work with those companies. You know what I mean?
Bravo.
So at the end, it's reaction was different. And the first samples that we made, let's be honest, they were a bit ugly, or you really had to like the nature and the natural look and feel of those samples to actually enjoy them. So of course, they looked very different from what we are used to. And yeah, even our friends were commenting well, no one is going to use that. You guys are doing great thing, but no one is going to use that. But then what happened? The biggest TV channel in Ukraine came to us, to our awful garage, to shoot our awful samples. I mean, they were not awful. They were a little bit, strange. So they made this video and they introduced ourselves as innovators, as we are into something. And then suddenly everyone believed.
Oh my God, the power of the media in that sense. I love that. You're in your garage. These things are really ugly, but yet somebody saw you as an innovator. And you know what? You are an innovator. Why does it have to be pretty to be a good product in a way?
Exactly.
I mean, it's packaging, right?
Yes. You just throw it away.
You throw it away. I know that you have been such an innovator. Your company has innovated so much that you actually won the winner of EIT Women Leadership Award. I think last week you're the third Ukrainian Resilience Forum in Luxembourg. So you went from 2021, had to leave your country. You set up this whole industrial scale processing of compostable, fully compostable packaging. And you're a woman in tech. And I've been dying to ask you since we talked last, but what does that mean to you? Because you said earlier in this podcast that you had these natural skills. You felt like you were a leader, you were an entrepreneur, and then you won this really prestigious award. What did that mean to you?
Oh yeah, this award, it's my Nobel Prize. That's what I say. I always wanted to be a leader. I always wanted to be on a storefront of the change. Since I was a child, I don't know where I had this idea even, but yeah, I guess it's just the way that I was born.
Yeah, the nature nurture thing.
Yeah.
I love that. You've known. But they say once, you can see a child when they're young, what they grow up to be. And also, I love that you just said that. I felt it. You even felt it as a child.
Exactly. So when I was a child, everyone was saying I was so stubborn. And now I understand I was not stubborn. I was just goal-oriented and I really wanted to execute.
You know what? These labels that they give people are insane. I think also, I'm just going to say it. It's okay, sorry, everybody. Not sorry. But would you say a man is stubborn? No, you would say he's committed to his principles.
Exactly.
It's they expect girls to fall in line, but you knew yourself. I love that. I was committed to my goals. That's what I call confident, not stubborn.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's true what you said, that if it would be a boy, everyone would say, well, he will be successful in his life. what
Yes.
everyone was saying to me, that I will have problems in my life with such attitude.
You know what? You're the perfect shining example exactly of the hypocrisy when it comes to success. So when you win this award like this, you're just proving like these traits in a woman are about success. They shouldn't be belittled and be called stubborn. They should be called confident, committed to your goals, a successful entrepreneur. It's insane that here we are in 2025 and we still do this.
Yeah, we still do that. Definitely. So yeah, it was my Nobel Prize. It was recognition, like being a leader, really, that I am a leader. Finally, I got this external recognition and proof.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think what is more important, that I serve as a role model then to other female, that, I mean, I have like many, like a big community of people who already know me. And when they see my success and how I get to my goals and how I get those awards, they also think, well, I can be the same and I can get the same recognition. And I'm so happy to be like this example to them.
You are the best example. That is the best example to lift other women up. And also, to be honest, like you're setting an example for every of the next generation behind you. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if you're going to look at resilience and fast thinking through spreadsheeting of where, you know, you need to go and you're forced out of your home due to an illegal war in your homeland, like it's the ultimate example of, okay, stubbornness if you want, but stubbornness for like survival and success. And this is what I love about your story so much is every time you turn and look at Julia, you see like this really great example of what an entrepreneur is, of what a woman can do, of what a free thinker can do, and using it for the greater good of the entire world. I do have a question about what your daughters think. Do you tell them, like, yeah, I turned this waste into like a product? Like, what are their thoughts on that?
They love the concept. They love the mycelium. And I'm so proud that they already know what is that. And my older daughter, she's 11 and she studies here in Spain at the public school. And one day she went to school and returned back and she made like a poster with like notions that it is so important to look after our nature, our environment. She drew like the circular economy thing. And she put this poster in our building and everyone is like reading this poster. So yeah, this is like, I'm so proud of that.
Yeah,
and I really don't care. I don't care if she works towards environment in the future.
Yeah.
I just love to be an example for them.
Well, you are already like, I think that's a really good example of that generation, Generation Alpha, is already thinking like sustainably. And you're right, maybe they don't become like environment. It's not the point. It's about changing the global mindset of what it is to care about the planet and what you can do. And I think that that is the best gift you can leave behind is what if we have this whole next generation, the first thing that comes out of their head is sustainability instead of how much does it cost?
Exactly. And they already treat nature, resources, and things around us very differently.
So respectfully. Yeah, very differently. I know this is new because we didn't have a war 3-4 years ago, but you were at a forum, the 3rd annual forum on Ukrainian resilience in Luxembourg last week. So what was that like to gather all the voices? Because I don't think the world really knows. I have a friend, he's in Vienna, he's from the Ukraine. He also he's moving to Malaga. But, you know, he has this great guilt that he feels because he's not in the country. And I think, you know, everyone around him is like, yes, but, you know, you're representing, you're forging ahead, you're creating a company. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on what you heard of this forum, maybe your takeaways, because it was all for startups, right? Is an incredible amount of technology that comes out of the Ukraine. It's so mind-blowing.
Yeah, there was like even a phrase said on that forum that Ukrainian code is everywhere. So Ukraine is very famous maybe now because of the talented developers that we have, like, who actually create the code, and it's everywhere. It's in Ryanair, in SaaS, like in so many platforms, and we don't even realize that. So that forum was actually not only about the startups; it was also about the entities like government that represents interests of Ukraine. Like different countries are gathered around this idea that we should support Ukraine to the extent that we can. And it's not only about the ammunition. but it's also about supporting economics, because then economics can pay back and can invest into the front line, actually. So it's all about what we do after the war as well, rebuild Ukraine, but start now, get those stakeholders into one room, discuss how we can support Ukraine best. And like there are even already funds that support Ukrainian businesses, that support rebuilding efforts. And like Luxembourg has a program that is called Business Facility Program, that if Ukrainian company works together with a Luxembourg company, they will be granted, I think was up to 500,000 or something like that. So it can go even beyond that.
So this is exactly what we need to do. I love that partnership. Yeah. That's amazing.
My point is that, so I was part of the panel that Ukrainian startups are thriving. And I say that they are not only thriving, they are on a race. We finally got a spotlight on the Ukrainian startups, on those incredible solutions that we built. Those solutions were always there in Ukraine, but because of this, such a bad reason, the war, that we finally got the spotlight, because like everyone in the startup ecosystem was also like gathered around the idea how we can help Ukraine, and were doing their best whenever they could. So they started to invite Ukrainian startups to the different events. And that's when we were able to actually raise awareness of what we do, find investors, find customers, find partners. So I think Ukrainian startups are really on a race at the moment. And again, it's such a horrific situation, but the resilience that we do. And yeah, what you said, that of course, I also do feel ashamed of the fact that I'm not in Ukraine, I'm not in the front line. Like, again, I'm a woman, so it's a very different topic as well there. I understand that I could do some things there, but at the same time, I understand that we have to hold economics, because then there is nothing that could support. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, the idea of economics. And we brought that back to your company. The first thing they ask is how much, but
yeah,
by doing what you're doing and being at these forums. And I love that you said we're in the spotlight. It's sad that it took a war to put the Ukrainian technology and innovation and startups at the forefront. It's terrible that that's what it takes, world. But I love that it does, because what you're doing is you're preparing for the future. You are a different kind of frontline by being able to create that economic support that when this war ends, that the country will maintain its resiliency and continue to rise, just like the startups are rising. So it seems so unfair. You know, it's like you said, like you're not there, but you're here building this company, but that will build and help rebuild Ukraine. Like it's all tied together.
Yeah.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing these stories. And hey, can you tell us where we might find some packaging for S.Lab, or is that sort of off the books right now?
We work with many companies in beauty, self-care, electronics, decor.
This is great.
Yeah, it's already some traction, and we are looking into food, pharmaceutics industries as well. But we work with L'Oreal, and I'm proud to say that they were one of our first customers. So back to that point that, the reaction was different. But then there are actually companies among those big corporations who want to make a change, who put an effort, who work with us and like go through errors and trials in order to receive the packaging that they want, and that they will be able to use and to sell their products. And I think it takes a world to kind of make a change, but with those small steps, small victories, I think we are able to get there.
Yeah. See, it's the small victories. And you're the perfect example of that continued buildup of small victories. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Happy to be here.